Today we're talking about fuel issues, especially in the wintertime, and why it's important to take the tank off, clean it out, and change filters every fall. It's part of a 400-hour recommendation that we do, but if you don't do the 400-hour, I recommend you do it every fall because you get condensation. If you carry your fuel in jugs, you're liable to get water in the jugs, and a little bit of water in one of these machines creates havoc. I took the shield screws out so that it doesn't take so long to take the shield off. The back screw comes off. By the way, this is a 735, and this one has the Kubota motor in it. So it's different than the other machine. If you pull this shield off, it gets to your tank. The tank is secured in position by 2 bolts here and 2 bolts here. So then, when you want to remove the tank, you need to undo this hose. This is your overflow hose. Undo the electric. That's for your fuel gauge and water sensor. Once these 2 points are unhooked, this tank should pull right up out. I like to drain the tank first. I pump it empty, and then it should pull right up out of there. So take it out, unhook the hose. There are 2 filters. There is a flow-through filter, which you can see down in here, and there's a spin-on filter, which is this one down here. They both need changed whenever you're doing the tank. This is a water separator. This is nice and clean, so there's no water in it. I don't bother with that unless there's water in it. If there happens to be water in it, I take it off. Take the tank out, turn it upside down, rinse it around, get all the stuff out of it that you can. So then, while that's off, I change those other 2 filters, put them all back together, put the tank back in where it belongs, make sure it's positioned right. There is enough hose on the tank that you don't have to unhook it, but I always do and blow through it. I make sure I have pressure from the filter side back into the tank, just in case there's some debris in there or water. Pull that out, put it back in. This model has a Kubota motor, so it has an electric lift pump. It will self-prime as soon as you turn the key on. But I often turn this little bleed screw out just to let it prime quicker. You may need a 10mm wrench or a good Phillips, whichever one works for you. Let the key on till you get clear fuel coming through here. And then you're ready to go. I reuse the fuel, but I run it through a strainer. Always make sure there's a strainer so that you don't get debris back in it. At this point, water is way more critical than anything else that I've found in them. I've had 4 in the last 2 weeks that froze up because the guys did not change the filter, did not clean the tank out in the fall, and as soon as we get cold weather, they freeze up. Like I said, the Kubota has its own lift pump. You don't need to prime it. All you need to do is make sure you have fuel coming out of the bleeder, and then it should fire right up. Of course, you got to put all the bolts and all that stuff back in. I usually figure an hour to do the whole works. Okay, this is a 755, which is the same as a 760 except the 2-speed. This has a Kohler / Lombardini engine in it, so it's a little different than the Kubota. The tank attaches just like the other one did. It has 2 bolts here and 2 bolts here. Unhook your electric, and I always empty the tank before I try to pull it off. It's pretty heavy. Pull it up out. This one has a different filter. This is your spin-on filter, and it has an electrical connection so that if you get water in the filter, it's going to shut the motor off. So that you need to unhook that before you take that filter off. It has the same flow-through filter, this little guy down here. The process is the same. Take it out, rinse it out, make sure everything is good to go. But when you put it back together, now we're different. This has a primer pump. Right here is your primer. And when you empty the tank and put new filters on, you're going to take approximately 120 pumps on this primer. You'll think it's not getting full, but you pump it till it gets solid and then fire the engine. There is no bleeder. Never, never, never mess with the injector lines on these engines. They're 12,000 pounds of pressure. Once you have that primed, start it up. You may have to do the process, the priming pump again, another 15 or 20 pumps. But other than that, the process is the same. except this does not have the lift pump. You have got to prime it by hand. Strain your fuel going back in, and you should be good to go. I have gotten up to 1.5 cups of water, junk, whatever, out of these things at times. So it's critical to do it in the fall, especially here in the Northeast where it gets cold. These machines, the fuel all feeds off the bottom of the tank on all of them. So if there's any condensation, any water gets in there, it gets in that fuel line and it will freeze solid. So that's why it's more critical with these than it is with a tractor. A tractor is top feed, this is bottom feed. That's basically it on the two machines. All the smaller machines have Kubotas. The 755, 760, and 860 have the Kohler/Lombardini. So it's a little different process, but the priming is the biggest difference between the two machines.